we're gonna be doing a good old plant tour, and I'm gonna be showing you every single plant that survived the move and made it with me to the new apartment. I significantly downsized my plant collection during this move. I went from having around 100 plants to having 60 in this new apartment. I always said that 100 plants was my threshold, but I learned that I actually like being way below that threshold because that way I actually avoid feeling burnt out by my plant collection. We're gonna start off with my good old plant shelf where the majority of my plants live. And whenever I talk about this plant shelf, I do like to mention that these are 3 separate IKEA Vecchio shelves. That's probably the most asked question I get on this channel, and I really like these shelves. I think they look sleek and chic. They are glass, so they are a bit harder to maintain, but I feel like my plants look really, really good on these shelves. We're gonna start on this side of the shelf and then make our way to the other side. And of course, first things first, I gotta mention my favorite plant in my collection, the plant that I will take everywhere with me, probably even to my grave, and that is my lovely, long, luscious Hoya linearis. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you will know that this is probably my favorite plant in my entire collection. It's the plant I get the most compliments for, and it's also the plant that I influence the most. I always talk about how every plant parent, even if you have only like 4 plants, you should get the Hoya linearis because this plant is truly such a showstopper. I mean, look at how long this thing is. It is so long, it is so beautiful. It's so fun to just touch and have on display. I cannot imagine my collection without this plant. So of course, we gotta start there. And then over here, I do have a little Hoya wooliniana UT 152, I believe. Now, she is not looking that great. As you can see, there are some crispy leaves, and that's because I had her way too close to the radiator and these leaves got crispy crunchy. Now, this honestly isn't like one of my favorite Hoyas, but I do find this plant very interesting. And also the fun thing about this plant is that it is a prolific bloomer. My plan for this plant is probably to get it like super bushy and have it displayed in a window, probably like hanging from a curtain rod or something like that. I think that would look gorgeous, but as of right now, it just sits on the corner of the shelf just because, again, it's not my favorite, but I don't want to get rid of it. And it doesn't take up that much space, so I don't mind it. And then over here on this side, now this poor thing literally fell over like 5 minutes ago. And this is probably the 3rd time that this plant fell over in like the last week or so. And this is my Hoya lacanosa, I believe white pearl. And this was actually a gift from a Plantopus order I placed quite some time ago. And it was just like, I believe a 2-leaf cutting, and look how nice and long it is already. And again, this one is probably gonna go into a nice little window display so it can trail and look gorgeous. Lacanosas are really easy Hoyas, and I just like the look of them. I think they look really dainty and they do have very cute flowers. Moving on, we have the plant that I have had probably the most amount of mishaps with. This is my Anthurium Wendelingeri, and she is a long girl. And now I have dropped this plant so many times. I have ruined so many new leaves on this plant. And also, this is a plant that constantly struggles with thrips. So we've had a lot of ups and downs. I had to chop this plant back numerous times, but through all of that, I still really enjoy the look of this plant, and I love how it looks on my shelf. And this is a fairly easy anthurium. It's a very consistent grower, pushes out leaves at a pretty steady pace. Unfortunately, they aren't getting any longer. Like, I feel like this is just the max that I'm gonna get with this plant. And that is probably due to the fact that I haven't repotted it in a long time. And also the fact that it doesn't get a lot of light. I do have Barina grow lights throughout this whole entire shelving system, but obviously this is a strappy plant and it doesn't get a whole lot of light from the front, but it looks gorgeous on a shelf. And honestly, I don't mind that the leaves are a little bit smaller. Then behind her, we have the Hoya. I believe this is the subquintuple nervous new moon, something like that. This is a rather new Hoya to my collection, but I absolutely love the thick leaves of this plant. Unfortunately, hasn't grown in a long time, but Hoyas do tend to be slower growers, especially in the winter. But I believe that once spring hits and once we get warmer, longer, sunnier days, that this plant will definitely jump into action. Now, a plant that I honestly didn't have on my radar at all, a plant that I just bought as a filler plant, but turned out to be one of my favorites, is the rabbit's foot fern. That's right, this plant quickly shot up to be one of my favorite plants, and it's mostly just due to the texture. I mean, this is such a fun plant. I think it adds such a different vibe to my mostly aroid tropical collection, and I just love the look of this plant. And on the whole, it's fairly easy. I've never had any pest issues with it, and I do find that this is one of those ferns that doesn't really mind drying out a little bit. I wouldn't push it, but I have forgotten to water this a couple of times and she bounced back perfectly well. So this is definitely one of like my newest favorites. And then the last one on this little section of the shelf is another one of my favorites, which is the Hoya Crimson Queen. And this is such a beautiful plant. I love the variegation on this plant, and especially when it gives me all white leaves. And the great thing about this plant is because it's a Hoya and has pretty thick leaves, the white leaves actually stay on the plant for a very long time. Like, she has a almost all white vine over here. And as you can see, literally none of the leaves, except maybe this one, are browning or dropping. And if this gets enough sun, the new leaves that have the white in them actually get super pinky and they look delicious. So I love this plant. It hasn't bloomed for me as of yet, but it does have some peduncles, so fingers crossed that it will bloom for me this year. And also, I don't know if it's maybe a bit too close to the grow light, because I can see that some of the upper portions of the plant are getting a little bit yellowy and bleached. But other than that, I absolutely love this plant, and this is such a hardy Hoya. If you're looking for a super hardy, gorgeous plant, I seriously recommend any type of Hoya carnosa because they are so resilient. Now, moving on to this bottom section, we have the Monstera albo. Again, one of my favorite, such a iconic plant. Monsteras do take up a lot of space, so unfortunately I can only have maybe one or two in this apartment, and I chose this one and my Thai constellation for now, and we will see in the future once they get like tall and big what I will do with these plants. But this used to be a rather big plant and I chopped it up. I'm restarting it in pawn and it is growing. Now obviously the new leaves are pretty juvenile because it basically has to create a new plant from scratch, but I find this to be a very fast grower. Honestly, the albo I find is even a faster grower than the regular Monstera, the green form. So I'm sure that within a year or two, this thing will be massive and I will probably struggle with where to put it. But as of right now, it fits perfectly on this shelf and I love it. Another plant that I absolutely love is my Calathea ornata. Now, this is one of my first houseplants that I got, and I know, getting a Calathea as a beginner houseplant parent is a death sentence, but I didn't know that they are difficult plants. I just knew that I really liked this plant and that it looked beautiful, so I wanted to add it to my collection, and boy oh boy, did we struggle. But I'm happy to report that after many attempts, I feel like I'm finally able to grow a beautiful, healthy looking Calathea ornata, and the trick is pon or semi-hydro. And this is a common theme that you will see throughout this houseplant tour. A lot of the plants that I used to struggle with, I have moved to semi-hydro and I have found a lot more success with. Then next to her, we have my gorgeous Hoya Silver Dollar, another one of my favorite Hoyas. This is, again, a pretty fast grower, and I mean, just look at the leaves. This foliage is to die for. Again, pretty thick leaves as well, which I love, and I love the way that it filled out this trellis. I love the way that it's facing forwards. It is truly such a beautiful Hoya. And then next to her, we have my, oh my God, this is heavy. My Alocasia Frydek, which again, if you've been on my channel, this is one of my favorite plants in my entire collection. She isn't looking that hot right now because I did have to restart it, but I do find that with Alocasias, winter can be particularly tough on them because they do love a lot of light and a lot of heat. And I do have the light, but I don't have the heat. So usually every single winter, my Alocasias take a big nosedive, but by spring and summer, they are fully recovered and looking amazing. So I'm not worried about this plant at all. Again, growing in semi-hydro, pon, and generally loving life when it's not cold outside. And then down here we have some more of my favorite Hoyas. This is the Hoya Wilbur Graves Silver. Again, a carnosa variety, so you know that this thing is resilient. Unfortunately, this is a pretty slow grower because it is a fully silver plant. However, I do not mind waiting for this plant to grow out because it is such a beautiful plant. The foliage is gorgeous. I love silver plants, and this one just hits all the boxes. Next to it, we have another little struggle plant, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was gonna bring this plant with me or not. This is the Alocasia watsoniana, and currently she is not looking that great. She got beat up quite badly during the move, and this is a plant that notoriously is difficult, and I can only keep like one leaf at a time on this plant. So I'm still not sure if I really want to keep this plant. Like, in theory, I think this plant is gorgeous, but if it's way too difficult and if it keeps staying in the one leaf club, I'm gonna get rid of it. Then we have this gorgeous beauty, which is the Maranta Silver Band. And this is a plant that I only got like a couple of months ago from a big box store, and I transferred her to pon, and she is loving life in pon under the Barina lights. I mean, just look at this new leaf. The purple on that, are you kidding me? That is gorgeous. That is stunning. Look at this big one. Oh my God, I just love a good Maranta. I have a couple of Marantas in my collection, and I will say, they are not the easiest plant. They are thirsty, they are extremely pest prone, and they do tend to get really crispy or leggy at times. So it's definitely a plant that I constantly have to prune back or restart or treat, but they do grow rather fast, and I just love having them. So I don't mind putting in a little bit extra work, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that they are the easiest plants in the world, because they're not. However, a plant that is extremely easy is the Hoya India. This was again a gift from Plantopus, and it's nothing special. And honestly, I did not think I was gonna take this plant with me, but I don't know, it's just so easy, and there is something interesting about this plant. Like, the leaves are so thick, they look like little jelly beans, like elongated jelly beans, and I really do like the look of this plant on this trellis. So once it like fills up this trellis, I think this plant will look really, really gorgeous. So far I've had zero issues with this plant, so I don't mind having a couple of filler plants as long as they are easy plants. And that one is for sure an easy plant. Since we're already on the floor, I might as well continue showing you the plants down here. Next up, we have the Hoya Hoshkaliana Inner Variegated, and this was actually a little gift from one of you guys, so thank you. And I really, really like this plant. I'm really excited for this thing to grow out and get like really nice and bushy. Obviously, I'm very much inspired by Wild Fern's plants. She has a mature specimen of this plant and it looks absolutely divine. Then we have a Anthurium, and this is the Anthurium Doriaki, just a regular Doriaki, no hybrid, no nothing, but I really like this plant. It is a very easy Anthurium, and I just love the shape of these leaves. Like, they look like little bowls. Like, what do you mean? That looks stunning. My specimen did get a little bit damaged in the move, and I do see some like yellowing on some of these leaves. Now, that could either be due to fertilizer, maybe I'm giving this plant too much fertilizer, or due to the light. I find that these Barina lights work great for most of my plants, but I do find that they are even a bit too strong for some plants. Like, I've had plants actually bleach under these lights, but I don't mind it. It's a very beautiful plant. However, I will probably move it to a bit of a different spot eventually because it's gonna outgrow that shelf pretty soon, I believe. Then we have two little ditty Hoyas. This one is the Hoya Eves Rocherai, which hasn't given me a single leaf since I got this thing. And I got this thing like, I would say it wasn't a year ago, but almost a year ago, and it literally hasn't done anything, but I'm keeping it in the hopes that one day it will grow. And honestly, if it doesn't start growing anytime soon, I will probably just get rid of this thing. And then we have the Hoya Insularis, which is a really, really cool Hoya. This was another gift from a Plantopus order, and this one is growing, but honestly, I don't know if it's my favorite or if I'm gonna keep it. Like, I do like the idea of it, but I don't have that much space for a lot of these like trailing Hoyas. I only have a limited amount of space anyway. So eventually some will have to go, and that might be one of the plants that will get chopped. Then over here we have one of my latest additions to my collection, and honestly one of the plants that is absolutely taking my breath away, and that is the Anthurium, oh god, what is this? It's a dress hybrid. It's an Ace of Spades Dressleri hybrid. Look at that color. What do you mean? That is gorgeous. I absolutely love this plant. I love the velvety sheen of it, and it is just such a beautiful plant. And so far, I haven't had a single issue with this plant, just growing it in regular ambient conditions. That's something else I actually forgot to mention. I grow all of my plants in ambient conditions. I'm not doing no tents, no IKEA greenhouse cabinets. That's just not my type of vibe. I like having my plants be a part of my decor and have them on display and not tucked away behind doors. And I'm the type of person that if I have any kind of obstacle between me and my plants, the plants are gonna get neglected. So I grow all of my plants out in ambient, and I do not like using humidifiers. So honestly, all of my Anthuriums are doing fine. They do get adjusted. But as you can see, the root system on her is super, super healthy, but I will need to probably up pot her pretty soon. Then we have this plant, which I am considering potentially getting rid of. This is the Scindapsus platinum, and it is a beautiful, beautiful plant. And I wish that this plant would grow better for me. I find Scindapsus on the whole to be not difficult, but difficult to keep nice looking. They tend to get very, very straggly looking, especially if they don't live in like ideal conditions or if they're not climbing. And I do not like the look of a climbing Scindapsus. I want trailing Scindapsuses, but I find that that's a little bit harder to achieve. And unfortunately, this plant is going through a bit of a struggle period. A lot of its leaves are yellowing, and I just keep on finding thrips on this plant, and that's probably due to the fact that it's obviously weakened, so the thrips are very much attracted to it. I don't know exactly why. Like, there are some roots in the reservoir of this thing. They seem healthy. This plant used to grow really well for me, but I don't know, maybe it's the winter, maybe it's the cold, maybe again it's a fertilizer issue. I don't know. For now I'm gonna keep her, but this is another one that's on the chopping block if she doesn't get her act together. And another plant that unfortunately might be on the chopping block is my gorgeous Hoya Crimson Princess. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a stunning plant. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely monstrous. I love it. This is one of my favorite plants. Again, super, super resilient. However, this Hoya has been struggling with thrips. And I don't know why I have thrips on my Hoyas, but I do. And unfortunately, I mean, look at this thing. Look at this thing. Like, how are you supposed to treat this? How in the heck are you supposed to treat this? And honestly, I've been down the road of trying to eradicate thrips many a times, and I just kind of gave up. Like, I don't care. They're here. They can chill. I really just don't care. I don't want to deal with the pesticides or the spraying down or any of that, literally. So nowadays, all I do is give them a shower. I will sometimes use some kind of like soapy solution to spray down the leaves, but most of the time, all I give them is a shower. And that's all the treating I'm willing to do because I'm just tired. No matter how much I treat, no matter how much I try, I can never get rid of them completely, and they always return at some point. So it's kind of like, why even bother? So I'm sure this has thrips, and I might eventually, I don't know, I might take cuttings of her, or I might just keep her and like let the thrips live on here. I mean, clearly this plant is happy and growing very, very well. So honestly, if I lose a couple of leaves or vines from like thrips damage or whatever, I'm completely fine with that. I've kind of just accepted the fact that pests are a part of this hobby and that they will always probably be to some capacity in my collection. And it's not worth me fighting them constantly and constantly worrying about them. I'm just like, whatever, it is what it is. I mean, my plants still look gorgeous despite having pest issues. Okay, I'm glad I don't have to kneel on the floor anymore because my knees are starting to hurt. Anyway, we're gonna move on to this section over here, and we're gonna start off with another one of my favorites, which is my Alocasia platinum. I mean, look at that, that is gorgeous. I love alocasias. I freaking love them. I know that alocasias get a pretty bad rap, but this one, oh my God, are you kidding me? Again, silver plant, cool looking foliage, and it's just such a bushy beast. And again, such a easy plant, one of the easiest alocasias ever. And I find that this one doesn't decline during the winter as much as some of my other alocasias. So if you're looking for a hardy alocasia, I highly recommend the platinum. Two other alocasias that I actually recommend if you're looking for something hardy are the dragon scales and the silver dragon. I used to have two beautiful specimens of both that I chopped up and are back at home because they were dealing with just some issues like thrips or dying back. So I just decided to restart those plants. So I don't have them currently in my collection, but my goal is to definitely bring those plants back. Especially my dragon scale was one of my favorite plants in my collection. So I do want that plant back, and I will have it eventually. But as of right now, it's back home in wet sticks. Then a plant that isn't doing that hot is the Anthurium Queen of Hearts. This is a really, really gorgeous, dark, gothic Anthurium. However, I have been having some root rot issues on this plant, and I can see a lot of dead roots in here, but no healthy roots. Usually I would intervene, I would check out the root situation, I would repot it, but I'm trying to learn to just leave my plants the heck alone, okay? Like, I do not need to get in here and see what's up. It does have a new leaf that obviously is malnourished and deformed because of the root rot, but I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna let it be, and I will see if it continues actively growing or if I start noticing some new root growth, but I'm not gonna intervene unless it's like really, really critical. And I know that if it gets to like a critical state, I will probably be able to save it through node propagation. And if not, honestly, so be it. It wasn't meant to be. This is a gorgeous Anthurium though, so I would really like if it would survive. Then over here we have another one of my favorite Hoyas. You will notice a theme that I really, really love Hoyas, and I really like silver Hoyas. So this is the Hoya, oh God, what is this? Nicholsonia New Guinea Ghost. I'm sorry, I haven't talked about plants in a really, really long time, so the names are out of my brain, but you can see why I love this plant. It's gorgeous. It's so ghosty and minty and silvery, and I love it. I did have a couple of struggles with this plant, and I will say that this is a very thirsty Hoya because it has pretty thin leaves, but it is a very rewarding and gorgeous Hoya nonetheless. Then we have a beautiful Anthurium nigrolaminum GG X Forgetii. This is a plant that I got as a pretty large mature specimen, but unfortunately it got a root rot and I did have to restart this plant. So this is that restarted plant, and she's growing well now. I can see some healthy roots in the pot as well, which is amazing, and I'm really just excited about the potential of this plant because this one can get pretty freaking big. And then another plant that I'm just so excited about, and I'm so happy that these are finally available and that you can get them at a very decent price, and that is the Monstera Burly Marks Flame. This is such a cool Monstera. I know that they're not everybody's cup of tea. I do realize that, but they absolutely are mine. I love funky, kooky plants. I love Monsteras. Not only do I love the shape of these leaves, I also really like how thick they are. They're literally like cardboard. Now, unfortunately, I used to have this plant in front of a east-facing window, and it did so well in that window, and all of the leaves were like facing forward. It looked gorgeous, but over here I don't have a really good window space to put this plant, so it does live on this plant shelf and it is getting light from above, so all of the leaves are facing upwards, but nonetheless I absolutely love this plant. Now, what will I do once it outgrows this space? I don't know. I truly don't know, but as of right now, as long as it fits on this shelf, this is where it's gonna live, and it's gonna look gorgeous in that little corner. Yes, absolutely. Then moving on, we have, oh my God, this heavy beast, which is my Anthurium Bessie AF crossed with a Papillolaminum. And this is another one of my favorites because I just love how chubby and round and just gorgeous this leaf is. Currently, it's in the 2-leaf club. It hasn't given me a new leaf in quite some time, but I did repot this plant recently, so I don't expect any new leaf growth because obviously it is working on that root system, but I absolutely love this plant. I find that this is one of those anthuriums that really likes a lot of moisture and that likes a bit of a swampy environment. So this is definitely one that I constantly keep moist, and I make sure that it never dries out completely, because I find that once this thing dries out, it tends to have a lot of issues with unfurling and just ripping itself. So definitely a thirsty plant, but love it nonetheless. Then we have my philodendron totem, which is just such a cool plant. I love the shape of this leaf or of this plant. I did chop this plant a couple of months ago because it was just getting a little bit too long and the new growth just wasn't doing it for me. So right now it is working on like creating a whole new little branch over here. So it hasn't given me a leaf in a hot minute, but I really like the shape of this plant, even as like a small plant. I think it adds just something so interesting and unique to my collection. And it is one that I also used to struggle with for quite some time until I put it into semi-hydro. And ever since putting it into semi-hydro, it's been a breeze. Okay, let's get this big bitch out of the way because she is huge. This is my Anthurium Mag-Lux hybrid. And yeah, I mean, you can see, she's absolutely massive. And she actually used to be a lot bigger. I had to chop off a lot of her leaves during the move because I just wasn't able to transport her. And I also did repot this plant a couple of months ago. I believe there is a video of me repotting this plant. So it's in a very, very large pot, but it hasn't given me a new leaf ever since the repot. So I don't know when this thing will push out a new leaf. And I do expect the new leaves to be a lot smaller because right now it lives on this side of the room. It doesn't have any grow light above it. It only has like the grow lights that it gets from the Barinas. And obviously it does get some light from the window, but it's a north-facing window and it's quite far away. However, I'm just gonna let her chill here and see how she will do. If I notice her severely declining, then I will give her like better conditions. But as of right now, I'm just gonna leave her be. And even if her leaves get a little bit smaller, honestly, I wouldn't mind because this thing is big and realistically, it really doesn't fit in this apartment. It's way too big for this small apartment. But I love it so much and I've grown it to such like a massive big size. It would feel very sad if I got rid of it. Up here we have my beautiful begonia white ice. And can you believe that not even half a year ago, this plant was chopped back to nothing because it had a pretty bad thrips infestation and it grew out beautifully. This is just such a easy plant. It is a very fast grower, but it is a thirsty hoe. Okay, this plant is thirsty. I constantly have to water this thing, but it is a really, really cool, rewarding plant. And as you can see, it's literally just like a 360 bush. Now, I do want to get some kind of like trellis situation for this plant so that it can just keep on climbing and getting big and beautiful. But as of right now, she just lives on top of this shelf. And so far, she ain't complaining too much. Then next to it, we have another little Scindapsus. And this is actually a Scindapsus that's looking very pretty right now. This is just like the regular Scindapsus exotica, the big leafed one. And I really, really love this plant. But again, it is one that tends to be scraggly and it is one that I have to chop pretty regularly in order to keep it looking nice and bushy. However, I do think it's worth the effort because it is a beautiful plant and I love the way it just kind of drapes over the shelves. Now, one of my absolute favorite plants is the Anthurium pallidiflorum, and my specimen is actually still rather small. I would say like people have grown these to be massive, massive beasts, and I cannot wait till the day that I just get a huge leaf on this plant. Will it happen? I don't know. Obviously, again, this doesn't get like the best lighting conditions, but I find that this Anthurium is very, very resilient. And anybody who talks about this plant says that this is a very hardy and easy Anthurium. And I just love, 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 love a strappy Anthurium. However, I will say the other day, one of my friends was over here and she commented how she hates this plant and how she hates in general like strappy leafed plants. And I was like, I was offended. I was honestly offended because how can you not love this? Like, this is just, isn't this the coolest shit ever? I think this is the coolest shit ever. So like, sorry, some people just don't have taste, I guess. Then we have the Hoya paradisea, which is another plant that I surprisingly struggle with. I don't have a lot of struggle Hoyas, but for some reason, this one is constantly on the struggle bus. But I can see actually 2 new vines growing out of her. So hopefully she will grow well and hopefully I will get some really pretty leaves on this thing because this is such a gorgeous Hoya, and also the blooms on this Hoya are lovely. Then we have a cutie little pinguicula, which again was actually a gift, and it is such a stunning little cutie pie. I don't know what version of a pinguicula this is. It's still small. It hasn't flowered for me, but I just keep it in pond, make sure that I water it, and I don't use distilled water or reverse osmosis water. I just use regular tap water. Not even filtered water, just out of the tap, straight out of the tap. And so far, she's doing fine. Ah, yes, the Queen Anthurium, the bane of every plant parent's existence. I really want to grow a lovely, beautiful Queen Anthurium. These are very, very thirsty Anthuriums. They're very thirsty and they love a lot of light. This is an Anthurium that is not forgiving. If you miss one watering, she will literally Thanos snap herself out of this universe. That's how finicky this plant is. But I keep on growing it in hopes that I will manage to grow a really beautiful specimen. Now this leaf mostly got dinged up during the move, but she's still looking okay-ish for now and growing. And she does have a pretty good root system. So honestly, maybe I will be able to have a beautiful Queen Anthurium. Time will tell. Then we have a plant that I recently restarted and potted into pond, and that is the Cebu Blue Pothos. I used to have a trailing version of this plant, but I don't know, it just got really scraggly looking. It got very leggy, and it also had thrips. So I decided to just take some cuttings and restart it, and I potted them into pond. As of right now, it hasn't done much. I can see some activated growth points, but with trailing plants, it's kind of hard to give them the light they need. It can get light from the top, but like light from the front, it's a bit of a different issue. And then lastly, on this portion of the shelf, I'm not gonna take this plant out because it is very heavy. This is my Hoya Bretonnier. Honestly, again, one of the easiest Hoyas ever. Constant bloomer. If you want a Hoya that is a constant bloomer, super easy, super rewarding, I definitely recommend the Hoya Bretonnier. And I love that the blooms smell like caramel. Okay, we're back on the floor for this last little section of this shelf, and we're gonna start off with another Calathea that I feel like I cracked the code with, and that is the Calathea Warshowitzii. This is literally such a cool plant, and I wish you could feel it. If you have never touched a Calathea Warshowitzii, just do it. It's so beautiful. Whenever somebody comes over to my apartment, I'm always like, just touch this plant. Touch this plant because it is so velvety smooth. This is also called, I believe, the jungle or the jungle velvet or the velvet jungle Calathea for a good reason. And again, this is a Calathea that I used to massively struggle with, but ever since putting it in pond, she's doing well. And I forgot to mention with Jornada, but a lot of people recommend to use distilled water or reverse osmosis water with your calatheas because they are very sensitive to mineral buildup. But I just use regular tap water. I ain't got time and I ain't got money to be watering my plants with distilled water, so they're getting what they're getting. They're getting the water from the tap, and they can either live with it or die. I have 3 Hoyas over here, and honestly, all of them are my favorites, so I'm just gonna quickly mention them. This is my Hoya macrophylla pot of gold. Super rewarding, super easy plant. Love her. Then we have the Hoya sulawesiana. Again, super cool, dark, elongated leaves. And out of all of my Hoyas, I'm probably the most excited about this plant potentially blooming because the blooms on this plant are truly out of this world. And I just love this Hoya. It is a pretty easy grower. I thought that this plant would be much, much difficult, but so far, so good. And then lastly, we have my Hoya caudata Sumatra, which is such a cool, fuzzy plant, and another one that I would really, really love to see some blooms on because, again, they're fuzzy, and I love fuzzy blooms. I mean, I love fuzzy plants, but I also love fuzzy blooms. And then down here, we have a couple more Marantas. First up, we have my variegated Maranta, and same story as with the silver band, growing in pond, really, really lovely plant, but I do have to constantly restart this plant or chop it back, and it does struggle with thrips from time to time. And then my last Maranta is my Maranta lemon lime, and this is actually a plant that I did a pretty severe haircut on quite recently because this thing is just constantly infested with spider mites. I cannot get rid of the spider mites, but same as with the thrips, I'm just like, whatever. I mean, the plant is growing, it's looking gorgeous. Why would I worry about a couple of little mites crawling on it? I don't care. I just shower it, I water it, and I mean, look at her. She looks gorgeous. Now, she probably does need a upsize because, I mean, look at that root situation. That is crazy. I do need to repot this plant soon, but I'm honestly scared of repotting Marantas. I find that whenever I repot them, they do not like it. So for now, I'm just gonna leave her be. And then the last 2 plants on this shelf are my Hoya inner variegated, Hoya Bell or Bella. Is it Bella or Bella? I think it's Bella, right? I always get confused on this plant. But anyway, it's the Hoya Bella inner variegated, stunning plant, and she is growing fairly well. Again, a plant that constantly struggles with spider bites, but I just shower it and that's it. And then the last plant on this shelf, a plant that I cannot figure out for the life of me. This is so sad. This is so sad, y'all. What do you mean? What is this? What is this? What is this nonsense? This is my Ficus triangularis outer variegated, and I think this actually has spider mites. Interesting. Anyway, this is a plant that I can never figure out. I used to grow it in soil. Now I'm growing it in pond. It does nothing. It does nothing. Like, it will sometimes push out new leaves and then it will cycle them and it will just look like this for months and then it will just get like a little bit bushier, but it won't really grow. So I do not know. I honestly don't even know why I'm keeping this plant. I mean, I do. I really, really love this plant and I would love to have a nice mature specimen, but I think in order to achieve that, I need to get this plant a lot more light. But as of right now, it's getting what it's getting, and and what it needs right now actually is a shower because it is definitely filled with spider mites. lights. Whoops. I don't have a lot of lights on this calyx unit simply because I didn't want to put any grow lights in here. And usually my dining table is in front of this calyx unit, but I moved it to the side just so I can film this video and show you the plants a little bit better. But I do have a cutie little Dracaena fireflies down here, and honestly this is a plant that is purely filler for me, and I have kept this in literally the darkest corners of the world, in corners where no other plant would survive, but this plant is somehow miraculously surviving. So honestly, I'm just keeping her for the vibes and for the fact that she has survived so much of my neglect. I literally water this maybe once a year. And then the last plant on this little calyx unit is my Aglaonema Maria. And she is actually looking really freaking stunning. This is another plant that I just used to neglect, and recently I have been trying to put a little bit more effort into this plant because I've just noticed how easy it is and how beautiful it looks. Right now, it's not getting like a ton of light on this calyx unit. Like I said, I don't have any grow lights on here, and it's just relying on the natural light it gets from that window. But overall, this is a very hardy plant, so I'm just gonna keep her here, and we're gonna see how she will do. I talked about this plant in my recent home updates video, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is my Monstera Thai constellation. This was a gift from a dear friend of mine. I did chop it. It was pretty massive at one point, so this is the chopped version of that plant, and right now it just lives under a pendant grow light, and I'm sure that with time it will get back to being a massive, huge specimen. And then I will probably be struggling with where to put it and how to take care of it. But as of right now, at this size, it is really cute and it fits perfectly in this corner. And I really, really love this plant. I love Monsteras. I love variegated plants. I love variegated Monsteras. So this is one that will probably go with me wherever in some type of capacity because it just has sentimental value to me. This is another one of those I get rid of it plants, and this is my Hoya croniana super silver, but she isn't particularly super silver. I'm just keeping her in this spot as of right now, and I don't know, might keep her, might get rid of her, but as of right now, she's just chilling, vibing, living, surviving. I'm sorry. Like I mentioned already a couple of times, I do have a pretty nice north-facing window in this living space, which does let in a surprising amount of light because it's not obstructed by any buildings or stuff, but it is obviously north-facing, so no direct sun comes into this window. And I realized that I don't like having my windows just crammed or filled with plants, because when you have plants in windows, you are usually just like looking at the back of the plant, and that is just not a look that I'm going for right now. So I only have 3 Hoyas actually in this window, and I only have them here because I don't really have a better spot for them right now. But one of them is the Hoya polyneura outer variegated, one of my favorite plants. I again am super inspired by Wild Fern's collection of Hoya polyneuras, and honestly, if mine could look like one of her polyneuras, oh my god, I would literally die because this is such a cool plant. Then we have the Hoya villosa, which honestly I just got because of the fuzz. This is a very, very fuzzy Hoya, but it is also a very gorgeous Hoya. However, it does need a repot and it needs a bigger trellis for sure, because this dinky little trellis ain't doing shit for her no more, mama. And then the last Hoya on this windowsill is actually a Hoya that I do want to not restart, but just chop. And that is my Hoya Multiflora Wonderfill. This is such a cool Hoya. Again, very silver, which I love, but this is a very thin-leafed Hoya, so it is definitely extremely thirsty, but on the whole, a very easy Hoya, a fast-growing Hoya, a fast-rooting Hoya. So what I'm gonna do is chop her up, because obviously during the winter time, it got a little bit leggy and some of the leaves don't look that great. So I wanna chop her up, plant her back into the pot, and just create a nice lush, a little planter of Hoya multiflora. And I really want this plant to flower for me. This Hoya has really cool shooting star blooms, and it would be really cool to see those blooms. Anyway, that is it for the main space and all of the plants in the main space. So let's move on to the bedroom. I don't have a lot of plants in my bedroom, and that is mostly due to the fact that I want my bedroom to feel very calming. I don't want it to feel super busy. I do want it to feel cozy. So I do think about adding maybe a couple more plants just to like amp up the cozy, but as of right now, I only have 3 plants in here, and I feel like that is a good amount of greenery. I would maybe like to add 2 to 3 more, but the ones that I do have, I really love. Starting off with my Aglaonema cutlass. And again, I talked a lot about these plants in my last updates video, so I'm not gonna like go too in depth with these plants, but this is an Aglaonema. It is super stunning, it's beautiful, and it is super low maintenance. And then next to her, under a Growing Pianta grow light, which is off currently because of filming purposes, I have my Ficus benjamina variegated, which is a plant that went from just being kind of a filler plant to being one of my top favorite plants. Although this is a ficus, it is pretty easy going. The only issue that I have with this plant is that it regularly cycles its leaves and drops them. It loves to make a mess, but other than that, I just love the way that this plant looks. I love the way that it fills out this corner, and it is a very beautiful plant. And then last, but certainly not least, we have my Aglaonema Silver Bay, who is my babe. I love her. I talk about this plant all the time because it's seriously the easiest plant ever, and it is so rewarding to grow. It looks so gorgeous in any type of space, and this is probably in my like top 3 plants. So I absolutely love this plant, and I'm gonna be taking this plant to the grave with me because it is such a gorgeous specimen. Again, Aglaonemas are easy, but this one is just top tier, man. Oh, I haven't done a plant tour in a very long time, so I feel a little bit rusty. But if you made it to the end of this probably very long video, I do want to say thank you. Thank you for watching and being here. I love you. Let me know what your favorite plant in my collection is. I would love to know. I have a couple of guesses, but I would still love to hear your opinion. Anyway, I hope to see you in the next one. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye!